Welcome back to Ascend Legal 101. I'm Ramona, and I'm so grateful that you've returned to have another conversation with me. Today, I'm connecting with you through our podcast platform, and my people, in gigantic air quotes, will probably turn this into a video for our community on YouTube as well. If you prefer our chats while you're walking or in your car or doing dishes, then you can find Ascend Legal 101 on all the podcast platforms. If you enjoy this conversation, please like it, share it with your people, the real ones, and subscribe so that we can continue to be connected. My intention over the next month is to engage in conversations that touch on all aspects of mentorship in our personal worlds and our professional worlds. When I was framing this intention, I realized I was going to have to do some oversharing. But not only that, I was going to have to examine everything from many sides, because if I didn't take that opportunity today, then I would be fixed in my judgment, which is an easy place for me to live. Very easy. I mean, I love living there. But we all know that it can be quite limiting. And I know for me anyway, when I get into my best, righteous, know-it-all-y self, that's when I miss something important, usually something that makes all the difference. So, you know how sometimes situations are kind of anchored in our memories from the viewpoint of who we were, like when we were a new employee, but who I am now, business owner, leader, teacher, president of everything kind of girl. And what I didn't appreciate then is that there is also a level of vulnerability in being the boss or the leader that we don't always acknowledge. And quite frankly, back in the day, we never talked about that stuff. Certainly the leaders in my environment never talked about that stuff either. So sometimes we forget that there's this space between our business and strategy and practice, and sort of whatever outcomes we achieve, whether they're good or bad. And usually that space is filled with a bunch of human beings, whether it's our staff or our managers or our clients and our families. So I thought I would start our conversations with a couple of stories that are always hot conversation starters at my Knowing Your Value for Legal Support Staff workshops. And I also wanted to use them to move our conversation along, because it was these very experiences that were the impetus for designing 2 mentorship programs that we ran with some really committed friends through a couple of professional organizations that we all belong to. So before we take a walk down memory lane, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, just quickly, the title of our conversation today. And that is, don't let anybody ever tell you how your future is going to go. Because my first draft of this conversation viewed this from one perspective, and that was my, old self, my wounded self, and my judgmental fuck you itself. That is who I used to be. And so I started coming up with titles like how to totally fuck up onboarding a new employee, or how not to set up your team for success. And those are the only 2 I'm going to share, because they start to get evil after a while and we should just move on. But I should also say before we get started that all the names here are made up, except for mine. I'm real, really. I'm really me. So now, come with me into the olden days when I was 19 years old. The job market was really tight for my area. So up until this time, I'd done term positions with the university and also the Ministry of Attorney General. But I was about to start my first, air quote, permanent, full-time, job kind of job in a proper, professional law firm. And the office manager sat me down and went through the whole onboarding process We signed all the forms and reviewed the office policy. And just before she sent me off to my new desk, she ran through her mental list of instructions, which I'm sure were very important to her, which included call all the lawyers by their surnames and always call them Mr. or Mrs. You have to type all of your courier slips and fax cover sheets on a typewriter. No one wants to have to decipher your handwriting. And don't ask any questions. Especially don't ask any questions of Samantha, because she doesn't like you and she doesn't think you can do the job. And quite frankly, we really took a chance on hiring you. So, just mind your business. And I wondered what my face was saying, because as a 19-year-old with maybe 6 months experience under my belt, don't you think I wasn't already thinking what Samantha was thinking? My 19-year-old self sat in my new gray cubicle, feeling like I had not only gone to private practice, but in fact gone to hell, where I was not even allowed to wear colored nylons. Today's boss lady self would say, look at that and say, gee, that's a good place to serve your clients from, isn't it? And as it wasn't very long before I realized that almost every instruction she gave me got me into trouble. It felt like a total setup. When I spoke to one of our female lawyers, I called her Mrs. Pants, because Fancy Pants was her name, of course. She was a fancy pants lawyer, and she was also a woman with a lot of confidence. So when I called her Mrs. Pants, she looked me right in the eye and said, number one, call me Fancy. And number two, I am a Ms., not a Mrs. Never assume someone is married or prefers Mrs., even if they are. Remember, this was the olden days. Ms. was a very big deal. So I backed away slowly, and I wasn't fully appreciating that I had just found my very first grown-up secret mentor. Not a very long time later, I did the walk and talk thing with the senior partner, who I worked for him too. And I said to him, Mr. Smith, can I get you to sign this before you leave? And he stopped and he said, Ramona, for Christ's sake, call me Joe. Mr. Smith is my father. And he signed my thing and I left. And he walked away and I turned around and walked back to my little gray cubicle thinking, holy smokes, he knows my name. I couldn't believe it, because I walked around for months feeling invisible, like I was an irrelevant piece of garbage who nobody believed in, and they didn't even want to hire me. I was on my own. Got to tell you, it's not that people weren't nice to me there, because they were. I just had no one to talk sort of about anything to. There was nobody who knew better, especially me. And I had no phone a friend option. Things started to slowly change. One day I sat down in someone else's station to borrow their typewriter, and the woman turned to me and said, Ramona, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you typing that? You're wasting your time. So I said, the office manager told me I had to type this. And the woman laughed and said, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Don't do it anymore. And quite a long time later, I have to say it took her a while to come around, Samantha came to me and she said, you know, you never ask questions. I can see sometimes that you're struggling, but you never ask for help. And, you know, why? So I told her why. You know, the office manager told me not to ask any questions, especially not to ask you any questions, because you don't like me. And you didn't think I could do the job anyway. And apparently they took a really big chance hiring me. And she was absolutely mortified. And that probably was the truth. But After that, she became an amazing, approachable teacher and mentor, someone who I could really look up to, and who went on to do all kinds of amazing things in the world outside of that office. All of the women there became amazing teachers and mentors. Every single person there provided me with the grace that I needed then. Looking back now, I know that office manager was trying to help me. And in one way she did, because I would never, ever task her or someone like her with onboarding or welcoming in a new employee to any endeavor that I was ever involved with, ever. The point for me is that she sent me on a particular path. Where it was going to go was up to me, not her. It was up to me. And thank God I had some people with sense around me who could show me the street signs. I had another lawyer in a different firm tell my mid-20s self that I have to suck it up because this was my lot in life. You know, I was mad about being chewed out by another lawyer in the firm because I hadn't prioritized his personal matter over a court matter. And she literally said to me, "You have to suck it up. This is your lot in life." And she walked into her office. And in that second, everything in my body said, "No, it's not. No, it's not." Probably didn't say it out loud. But that was not my lot in life. And you know what? It wasn't hers either. I just shake my head now. Like, are you fucking kidding me that you would say that to somebody? I could not see a modern leader, a true leader, say, "This is your lot in life." It's a little bit old-timey, right? It tells me a lot about that person. You know, there are a lot of times when I wish that somebody on my team would stay in their own lane. And I'm pretty direct, but I find usually a decent way to address it. I have said to people, I need to focus on this. You need to focus on that. You don't do my job. I don't do your job. It's the sum of the parts. And we carry on. It was with the benefit of hindsight and some amazing teachers along the way, I can say to you today, unapologetically, my little darlings, don't ever, ever let anyone tell you how your future is going to go. This is not your lot in life unless this is what you choose. There are a million examples of this every day. One time I met a teenager at an aviation open house who told me her mother said girls can't be pilots, but she was looking right at one when she said it. Or there was the time I was looking for a new flying instructor because mine went to WestJet. And the instructor that I talked to told me that I wasn't advanced enough for him. Find someone else. Of course, at that time, what I heard was, "You're not good enough for me. Find someone else." But you know what? About 2 years later, I became his boss. So, don't ever let anyone tell you how your future is going to go. I really like the practice when we bring new people into our teams that we talk to them, not just about their experience and skills and how they're going to contribute to the firm or the organization, but also about their lives, because you don't know where that diamond is hiding. And I mostly want to be supportive of people's goals in their lives. I love talking about that stuff. I always ask everyone what their plans are because I'm really nosy and also have a tendency to overshare. And also because that stuff is really interesting to me. That is where you're going to find the guts of who people are. What I find now is that the tricky part about hindsight is that as I went through this process to prepare for today, I also started to think of 1,000 or maybe 100 or 10. I thought of maybe 10 examples of how I have said something too directly to somebody, or I may have set somebody up for failure in the same way that I had been set up at that first firm. And it wasn't intentional, but I set them on a particular path. Where it was going to go, it was up to them, not me, not what I wished for them, not what I thought they had the aptitude for, not where I wanted them to land in the organization. Was all up to them. I could point the way if I walked my own talk, but really it's always up to them. And I used to always talk up our new people about their plans and ambitions. And one time, one of my managers told me, God, Ramona, it's like you're pushing them out the door before they've even started. And I'm like, reality check, he's a smart guy with plans. Or she knows exactly where she's going. They're leaving for sure. It won't be today, but they're on their way. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a hand in uncovering and developing someone's strengths? Maybe they'd stay, maybe not, but that's just better. I could talk about this stuff forever, but I'm going to leave you with one more example of how splendidly encouraging I am. And then I'm going to open this discussion up to you, my friends. A little while after leaving a leadership position in aviation, I swung by the office to drop something off, and I left a card for the new guy. And let me preface this by saying he had a great sense of humor, and also he had a very big fancy life before he took on this role. And my note to him simply said, don't fuck it up. Love, Ramona. How's that for encouragement? Real saint over here. Anyway, I'd love to know the reasons you have sought out mentorship or become a mentor yourself. The real deal, the passion, and the pain points. Tell me about the best mentor you've ever had, or the person you realized later was a great teacher or a secret mentor. I love those stories. So thank you for spending this time with me today. And before I go, I want to let you know that I love our conversations together, and don't ever, ever, ever let anyone tell you how your future is going to go. Not even your mentor, and not even me. Got it? The end.